The text message glowed on my phone screen like a slap across the face. 3 words that made my hands go numb, my breath catch somewhere between my lungs and my throat. Had it last week. I stared at those words until they blurred. My sister Emily had just told me, casually, as if she were mentioning the weather, that her wedding had already happened. The wedding I had paid for. Every single dollar. The deposit on the venue, the flowers, the catering, the photographer who cost more than my monthly rent. $12,000 that I had scraped together, borrowed from my savings, pulled from the emergency fund I had been building for 3 years. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My name is Mae Harper, and I'm 29 years old. I work as a pediatric nurse at County General Hospital, the kind of job where you give everything you have and still feel like it's never enough. I live in a modest apartment in Denver, the kind with thin walls where you can hear your neighbors' conversations and the radiator clangs like it's angry at the world. My life isn't glamorous, but it's mine, built one careful decision at a time. Emily is my younger sister by 4 years. Growing up, we shared everything, a bedroom with mismatched sheets, dreams whispered in the dark, the burden of our mother's illness that eventually took her from us when I was 19 and Emily was 15. After Mom died, I became more than a sister. I became her guardian, her protector, the one who made sure she finished high school, who helped her apply to colleges, who stayed up late helping her study for exams I barely understood myself. When Emily called me 6 months ago, her voice bubbling with excitement about her engagement to Marcus, a software engineer she had been dating for 2 years, I felt genuine joy. She deserved happiness. She deserved a beautiful wedding, the kind of day that would make her feel like a princess, the kind of celebration our mother would have wanted to see. "May, I need to ask you something," she had said that night, her voice suddenly small. "Marcus and I, we want a real wedding. Not just City Hall. But his family isn't helping, and I don't have the money." I knew what was coming before she asked. "How much do you need?" $12,000. "I know it's a lot. I know you've been saving. But you're the only person I can ask. You're the only family I have left." The words hit exactly where she knew they would. Family. The sacred thing we had left after losing so much. I thought about my savings account, the number I had been watching grow slowly, painfully slowly, for years. Money I had been setting aside for maybe buying a small house one day, or going back to school, or just having a cushion against the world's sharp edges. "Okay," I heard myself say. "I'll do it." Emily had cried. She thanked me a dozen times. She promised she would pay me back, that this meant everything, that I was the best sister anyone could ever ask for. I sent the money in 3 installments over the next 2 months. First, the venue deposit for a garden estate just outside Boulder. Then the catering and flowers. Finally, the photographer and the dress alterations. Each transfer felt like watching a piece of my future dissolve into someone else's dream. Emily sent me updates constantly. Photos of centerpiece options, fabric swatches for bridesmaid dresses, tasting menus from the caterer. She asked my opinion on everything, made me feel included, essential. "You're not just my sister," she texted once. "You're making this whole thing possible. I love you so much." The wedding was supposed to be this coming Saturday, October 18th. I had requested the day off from work months ago. I had bought a new dress, navy blue with a subtle shimmer, the kind of dress that made me feel elegant instead of invisible. I had even splurged on new shoes, heels that pinched a little but made my legs look longer. This morning, during my break between patient rounds, I texted Emily. Just a simple message. "Getting excited for Saturday. Do you need me to come early to help set up?" 3 hours passed before she responded. 3 hours during which I checked my phone between inserting IVs and comforting scared children and documenting symptoms in charts that never seemed to end. Then finally, her response arrived. "Oh, we had it last week. It was beautiful. Wish you could have been there." I read it once. Twice. 3 times. The words didn't change. My vision tunneled. The nurses' station around me faded into white noise. Someone was calling my name, asking if I was okay, but I couldn't respond. I just stared at that message, at the casual cruelty of it, at the erasure of everything I had sacrificed. I called her immediately. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. It rang 4 times before she picked up, her voice bright and cheerful, like nothing in the world was wrong. "Hey Mae, what's up? What's up?" I repeated, my voice barely above a whisper. "Emily, what do you mean you had the wedding last week?" "Oh yeah, we decided to move it up. Marcus got this amazing opportunity for a promotion, but it meant he had to start traveling for work, so we thought why wait, you know? We just did something small and intimate. Small and intimate. With my $12,000. I pressed my palm against the cool wall of the hospital corridor, trying to steady myself. "You didn't think to tell me?" Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now, back to the story. "To invite me?" There was a pause. When Emily spoke again, her tone had shifted, defensive. "Mae, don't be dramatic. You're always so busy with work. We didn't want to bother you with last-minute changes. Besides, it was really just close friends. Very casual. I paid for that wedding, Emily. Every single cent of it. And I'm grateful, really I am. That's why I'm going to pay you back. Eventually. When things settle down. Eventually." The word hung in the air like smoke. I thought about all the times I had heard that word before. "Eventually I'll clean my room," teenage Emily used to say. "Eventually I'll get a job and help with bills," college Emily promised. Eventually had never come. "How could you do this?" My voice cracked. "I gave up everything. That was my savings, my future. And you couldn't even tell me you were having the wedding without me? Look, I don't have time for this guilt trip right now. Marcus and I are actually packing for our honeymoon. We're going to Bali. His parents surprised us with the tickets." His parents. The ones who supposedly couldn't help with the wedding. I felt something cold settle in my chest, something that felt like understanding but tasted like betrayal. "Send me the photos at least," I said quietly. "From the wedding?" "Sure, I'll send some later. I really have to go now. We have a flight to catch." She hung up before I could respond. I stood there in the hospital hallway, nurses and doctors flowing around me like I was a stone in a river, and I felt more alone than I had since the day we buried our mother. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in my small bedroom, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation, every promise, every moment I had chosen Emily's happiness over my own security. The apartment felt too quiet, too empty, like it was reflecting back the hollowness inside me. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. Emily had finally sent photos. I opened them with trembling fingers. The venue was exactly as we had planned, the garden estate with its flowering arbors and string lights. The tables were decorated with the expensive centerpieces we had chosen together, white roses and eucalyptus in tall crystal vases. Emily looked radiant in her dress, the one I had helped pay to alter, her smile wide and genuine. I scrolled through image after image. There was Marcus, handsome in his tailored suit. There were their friends, people I had never met, laughing and dancing. There was an elaborate cake, 3 tiers covered in delicate sugar flowers. There was the photographer I had hired, capturing every perfect moment. And there, in several of the photos, I saw her. Our Aunt Linda, my mother's sister. The aunt who had cut off contact with our family years ago after a bitter argument about our grandmother's will. The aunt who had told me at Mom's funeral that I was too young and foolish to take care of Emily, that I would ruin her life. The aunt I had spent a decade resenting. She was sitting at a prominent table, wearing an elaborate purple dress and a satisfied smile. In one photo, she had her arm around Emily, both of them beaming at the camera. The caption Emily had written under that particular photo made my stomach turn. So grateful for family who've always been there for us. Always been there. I had been there. I had been there through every nightmare after Mom died, through every failed test and broken heart, through every moment Emily needed someone. And this was how she remembered it. This was how she rewrote our history. I set my phone down and walked to my desk, pulling out the folder where I kept financial documents. Inside were the bank transfers, each one documented and dated. $12,000, sent in good faith to a sister I thought I knew. I had been so careful to keep records, not because I didn't trust her, but because I was always careful. It was how I survived. Looking at those documents now, I realized something that made my chest ache. Emily had never intended to include me. The date change wasn't last minute. You don't book a venue, arrange catering, and organize a full wedding in a week. This had been planned. She had taken my money and deliberately excluded me, then told me about it like an afterthought. I thought about my mother, about the promises I had made at her bedside. Take care of your sister, she had whispered. She'll need you. And I had kept that promise, maybe too well, maybe at the cost of teaching Emily that actions had consequences. But as I sat there in the dark, looking at those bank statements and those wedding photos, I made a decision. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about dignity, about self-respect, about refusing to be erased from my own story. Emily had made her choice. Now it was time for me to make mine. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. The hurt was still there, sharp and present, but beneath it was something stronger. A resolve that felt like steel in my spine. I went to work and moved through my shift with mechanical precision. I checked vitals, administered medications, comforted a 7-year-old boy who was terrified of needles. The routine steadied me, reminded me that I had built a life that mattered, that helped people, even if my own sister couldn't see my worth. During my lunch break, I sat in my car and composed a message to Emily. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for a long time before I started typing. Emily, I've had time to think about everything. I need you to understand something. When I gave you that money, it wasn't just money. It was 3 years of extra shifts. It was every time I said no to dinner with friends because I was saving. It was the vacation I didn't take, the car repairs I delayed, the dental work I put off. It was my future, and I gave it to you because I loved you and wanted you to be happy. What you did wasn't just thoughtless. It was cruel. You took my sacrifice and made it meaningless. You erased me from one of the most important days of your life after I made it possible. I don't know who you've become, but this isn't the sister I raised. I need space to figure out what our relationship looks like after this. Don't contact me until you're ready to take real accountability. I read it 3 times, then pressed send before I could second-guess myself. The message showed as delivered, then read almost immediately. I watched the 3 dots appear, indicating she was typing. They disappeared. Appeared again. Disappeared. Finally, nothing. 2 days passed in silence. I worked, came home, tried to rebuild some sense of normalcy. I called my best friend Rachel, another nurse from the hospital, and told her everything. She listened without interrupting, and when I finished, she said something that surprised me. Mae, I love you, but I have to say this. You've been enabling her for years. Every time she's messed up, you've been there to catch her. Maybe this is the wake-up call you both needed. Her words stung because they were true. I had been so focused on being the parent Emily lost that I forgot to let her grow into someone who could stand on her own, someone who understood that love wasn't a blank check for bad behavior. On the 3rd day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Mae Harper? A woman's voice, professional and crisp. Yes, this is she. My name is Jennifer Walsh. I'm a family lawyer here in Denver. Your Aunt Linda gave me your number. She'd like to speak with you about a family matter. Would you be available to meet this week? My Aunt Linda. The woman from the wedding photos, the one who had abandoned us. Why would my aunt need a lawyer to contact me? It concerns your grandmother's estate. There have been some developments that require your attention. I really think it would be best if we discussed this in person. I agreed to meet her the following day, more out of curiosity than anything else. My grandmother had died 8 years ago, and the will had been settled, or so I thought. What developments could possibly emerge now? Jennifer Walsh's office was in a sleek building downtown, all glass and polished steel. She was a woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She offered me coffee, which I declined, and gestured for me to sit. "I'll get straight to the point," she said, sliding a folder across her desk. "Your grandmother established a trust before her death. A substantial trust, actually. The terms were very specific. The funds were to be divided between her granddaughters, you and Emily, but only under certain conditions." I stared at the folder, not touching it. What conditions? The trust stipulated that each granddaughter would receive her portion when she demonstrated, in your grandmother's words, true character and selflessness in supporting family without expectation of return. Your grandmother was very deliberate about this. She wanted to ensure her money went to someone who understood the value of family beyond financial gain. My throat felt tight. I don't understand. Why are you telling me this now? Jennifer opened the folder and turned it toward me. Inside were documents, bank statements, letters in my grandmother's handwriting. Your Aunt Linda was named as the trustee. She was responsible for observing both you and Emily and determining when either of you met the criteria. She's been watching for years, Mae. And 3 months ago, when Emily came to her asking for help with wedding expenses, Linda saw an opportunity to test you both. The room tilted slightly. What are you saying? Your aunt knew Emily had asked you for money. She wanted to see what you would do, and more importantly, what Emily would do with that generosity. She attended the wedding to witness the outcome firsthand. Jennifer pulled out another document. Based on her observations, Linda has determined that you have met the conditions of the trust. Emily has not. She slid a certified check across the desk. I looked down at it, and the number made my vision blur. $50,000. 10 times what I had given Emily. This is your inheritance, Mae. Your grandmother wanted it to go to the granddaughter who understood that family means sacrifice, not exploitation. Linda has also included a personal letter for you. With shaking hands, I opened the envelope. My aunt's handwriting was small and precise. Mae, I know you have every reason to hate me. When your mother and I fought, I let pride destroy our relationship, and I've regretted it every day since. I stayed away because I was ashamed, not because I didn't care. I've been watching you from a distance, seeing how you sacrificed everything for Emily, just like your mother would have done. When Emily came to me for money and I refused, it was because I needed to see what she would do. I needed to see if she had learned the values your mother tried to teach her. I attended her wedding to witness the final test, and my heart broke watching her celebrate while you were deliberately excluded. Your grandmother knew that money reveals character. She wanted her legacy to go to someone who would honor it. That person is you. I hope someday you can forgive an old woman's mistakes. With love and regret, Aunt Linda. I sat in that office, holding a check that represented more money than I had ever seen, and I felt something complex wash over me. Not triumph, not even relief. Just a deep, aching sadness for everything that had been broken and couldn't be easily repaired. I walked out of Jennifer Walsh's office in a daze, the check folded carefully in my purse. The Denver streets bustled around me with their usual rhythm, people rushing to meetings and lunch appointments, completely unaware that my entire world had just shifted on its axis. My phone buzzed. Emily. Finally responding after 3 days of silence. Mae, we need to talk. Can you call me? I stared at the message for a long moment, then slipped my phone back into my pocket without responding. I wasn't ready. Not yet. That evening, I sat at my small kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold between my hands. The check sat in front of me, impossibly real. $50,000. I could pay off my student loans. I could put a down payment on a house. I could finally go back to school and get my nurse practitioner license, something I had dreamed about for years but never felt I could afford. But more than the money, it was my grandmother's faith in me that made my chest feel tight. She had seen something in me worth investing in, worth believing in. Even my aunt, despite our years of estrangement, had been watching, had cared enough to ensure this legacy went to the right person. My phone rang. Emily again. This time, I answered. Mae, thank God. I've been trying to reach you. Her voice was high, anxious. Something crazy has happened. Aunt Linda called me today. She told me about some trust from Grandma. Did she call you too? I took a slow breath. She sent her lawyer to see me, yes. Did you get money? The question came out rushed, almost desperate. I did. How much? There it was. Not an apology. Not acknowledgement of what she had done. Just the immediate focus on money, on what she might be entitled to. That's between me and Grandma's estate, Emily. But we're supposed to split it, right? That's how inheritances work. Whatever you got, half of it is mine. Something inside me that had been bending for years finally snapped. No, Emily. It's not yours. Grandma set up specific conditions. She wanted her money to go to someone who understood what family really means. Someone who gives without expecting anything in return. Someone who doesn't take and then throw people away when they're no longer useful. Silence on the other end. Then, quietly, what did Aunt Linda tell you? She told me the truth. That she watched you exclude me from the wedding I paid for. That she saw you invite her, someone who abandoned our family, while deliberately keeping me away. She told me that you failed the test, Emily. And honestly, she was right. That's not fair. Emily's voice rose, cracking. You don't understand. Marcus's parents, they didn't approve of you. They thought you were too controlling, too involved in my life. They said if you came to the wedding, they wouldn't pay for the honeymoon. I had to choose. The confession hung in the air like shattered glass. I closed my eyes, feeling something that might have been my heart breaking one final time. You had to choose, I repeated slowly. Between your sister who raised you, who sacrificed everything for you, who paid for your entire wedding, and a honeymoon to Bali. And you chose the vacation. It wasn't like that. It was more complicated. Marcus said we could always celebrate with you later, do something special, just the three of us. When were you planning to tell me this, Emily? When were you going to do something special? Because from where I'm standing, you took my money, excluded me, lied to me, and only reached out again when you found out there might be more money involved. That's not true. I was going to tell you everything when I got back from the honeymoon. I just needed time to figure out how to explain it. You've had 3 days since I sent you that message. 3 days to apologize, to explain, to show even a shred of remorse. Instead, you called me about money. I heard her crying now, soft sobs that once would have broken my resolve immediately. But something had changed in me. That girl who always put Emily first, who always made excuses, who always believed that love meant endless second chances, she was tired. She was done. I think, I said carefully, that Grandma knew exactly what she was doing. She knew that one of us would understand sacrifice and one of us would only understand taking. I'm grateful it was me who learned the right lesson, even if it cost me everything to learn it. Mae, please don't do this. I'm sorry. I really am. I made a mistake. Emily's voice wavered through the phone, desperation bleeding through every word. I know you are, I said softly. But you're sorry you got caught, not sorry for what you did. There's a difference. I hung up before she could respond. My hands were steady now, my breathing calm. For the first time in a decade, I wasn't carrying the weight of being Emily's protector, her safety net, her endless well of forgiveness. The next day, I deposited the check. I paid off my student loans in one swift transaction that felt like shedding chains I had worn so long I forgot they were there. I set aside money for a down payment on a small house. I enrolled in an online nurse practitioner program that would let me keep working while I studied. And I did something I had never done before. I called Aunt Linda. "Hello?" Her voice was cautious, unsure. "It's Mae. I wanted to say thank you. For watching out for me. For making sure Grandma's wishes were honored." I heard her breath catch. "Mae, sweetheart. I'm the one who should apologize. I wasted so many years being stubborn and proud. Maybe we both learned something about family," I said. "The hard way." We talked for an hour that day, and many days after. She told me stories about my mother I had never heard, about my grandmother's fierce love and her wisdom about human nature. Slowly, carefully, we built something new from the ruins of what had been broken. Emily sent messages occasionally. Apologies that felt rehearsed, requests to talk that I wasn't ready for. I didn't block her number, but I didn't respond either. Maybe someday we would find our way back to something resembling sisterhood, but it would have to be built on truth this time, not on my endless sacrifice. 6 months later, I stood in the living room of my new house, small but mine, with windows that let in golden morning light. On the mantel was a photo of my mother, young and smiling, and next to it, a letter from my grandmother that Aunt Linda had given me. "Give your love to those who treasure it, not those who expect it," it read in her elegant script. I had finally learned that lesson. And in learning it, I had found myself again. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.